Welcome everybody. How do you like our new digs here? Yeah, it's pretty cool. So welcome to the AI Meetup, Tech Alley. For those who haven't been here before, my name's Tim May. I host the event, and we cover a lot of interesting AI subject matter. Matthew Denman's our guest speaker today, and he's going to be talking. I'll let him describe it, but Cloud Code and some interesting usage patterns around that. As usual, I put the word out. If you have a particular project that you're working on in the AI space, something interesting that you'd like to share with others, please approach me. I'm always looking for interesting presenters because I don't want to do every presentation myself, right? So anyway, let me know if you have something you'd like to talk about. Having said that, there's also on meetup.com, we have the AI Meetup. If you sign up, then I send out a teaser before every event saying what we're going to be covering and whatnot. So please feel free to sign up for that. It's free, of course. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. Are you going to be taking questions during the presentation?
Yeah, you're feel free to ask questions as I'm going. Plus, at the end, if we have time, I've got a little slide for that specifically.
Yeah, wave your arm, and I'll try to. I'm going to get the exercise running up and down the aisles here. But anyway, I have this second microphone for that purpose. If I don't get to you, then Matt can sort of repeat your question so it gets on tape. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew.
Tim. Hi, I'm Matt Denman, and so we'll be talking about AI-assisted software development, and I'm going to cover it at two different levels. So if you're not a software engineer, like you don't code for a living, the first part will be kind of something more towards regular people that are into tech but aren't necessarily programmers. But as I get further into it, I'm going to start looking at real code and how I use it to do software development myself. So I'm just curious, out of this group, how many people have done software engineering before? Oh, okay, good. We got a good amount of people in here. And you've probably already used AI a lot, so I just want to start off by saying that I've gotten to the point now where about 90% plus of the code that I actually put into production is written by AI. But one thing I notice is that while it's possible to write quality, secure code that can even be complex and not just simple basic code, it all depends on the approach and the techniques that you use to do that. So part of it is your willingness to use AI and to work with it. So I, for myself, find that sometimes I'm slower using AI than just going and coding it myself. But what's wind up driving that, for the most part, is that I spend more time covering different aspects. Like I'll have a conversation with the AI about the code, what I'm trying to do, and it's like more like peer programming. For me anyway, and that I wind up having deeper conversations about the changes that I'm going to make and how I want to approach the solution than I might have done if I'd have just started coding myself without actually doing any of that work. So and so that's part of it, is like I notice that when I look at what other people are doing, there's a lot of different ways to approach having AI write your code. And so some people's experience is very different from mine, and that their opinion about what AI can and cannot do with software engineering is driven by the way they've approached the solutioning or how they approach using AI to actually write the code for them. So I find that your mindset towards how you would look at what AI can do for you, what you're willing to do, how open you are to it as a tool that will write code for you, will drive your experience quite a bit. And I don't know, I'm sure we've all noticed that, like on LinkedIn and other places, Reddit, there's a hotly debated topic of like, some people say I can build the world in 10 minutes with AI software engineering. Some people will say it's garbage, you can't do it, it's insecure code, it has a lot of bugs, and you're going to create code that you don't know how to maintain with a lot of tech debt in it. So the range of opinions is just like all over the board. And so that's why I lead with this slide, is to say that this is just how I see it. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do it or how other people do it is right or wrong or whatever. It's just like one way to think about it. And this may or may not jive with how you see doing AI and software engineering, and that's okay. I mean, like I say, AI is so powerful and different and unique in how it can do different approaches to things that we can both be right, even if we don't necessarily come at it from the same perspective and have the same opinion about it. One thing I've noticed is using AI to try to generate code for the last, even though I've been using AI and building systems with AI, it's only really been, say, the last year that I've really tried to have it writing code for me versus doing code reviews. So for the last 3 years, I've been integrating AI into software systems, and we'll see some of that here. But over the last, say, 6 months, I've been growing to where I'm trying to get AI to generate all the code for me. And even if it takes me twice as long right now for it to do that work, my goal is to say, I didn't sit there and hand write everything. I had a conversation with AI and finally got it to be able to generate the code I was willing to accept to roll out into production. And so that's why sometimes it can take me a lot longer, but sometimes I can do 3 weeks of work in, say, 1 week. So it all depends on how I approach it. Sure.
I'll get my exercise right.
And to stay in shape. So I've noticed the same thing where I end up spending a lot of time talking to it. So like I've got 3 instances of Cursor open right now, and I'll use one clean thread to look at it from one angle, one clean thread to look at from another angle. And so when you're saying you find you're spending a lot more time sort of talking through the code with it, so one, I find the same thing. So my pointed question to you is, how would you say like the spread is? Are you spending 50-50? Is it more do this and then you're doing a quick brainstorm on it? Or are you doing more like philosophical discussions with it about where it's heading and getting really engaged?
It's actually, I'm trying to say maybe more 80% of my time is talking about the solution of the problem that I want to solve and the solution we're going to take to get it done. And when it articulates to me, here's what I think we're actually going to do, then I say go and do it, and it's, pounds out that really fast. My goal is that code can just drop into place and go and be exactly what I wanted because I took all that upfront time. And when you think about like a regular software engineering team, that might have been like your poker planning and your ticket work, like when you're building your agile ticket, you're describing exactly what it is you're going to be doing. And if you've ever done peer development where it's like 2 of you sitting together, you're talking on and on and on about, this approach, the loop isn't that way, it's this way, and why are you using that method instead of this other method? And a lot of that kind of planning is going on even before you start writing any code. I think we have another question, yeah.
Hi, my name is Perry. I'm just wondering, I guess if you're saying you get 90% of your code that you think is like trustworthy to some extent, the next approach or the next phase of that would probably be putting it into production, a pipeline or something like that. Would you trust any of what you're getting to put into a pipeline directly?
Yeah, because I review everything. So
there's still human
I spend
intervention.
all this time. I might spend an hour talking about here's the problem we're trying to solve. Here's the code we're going to look at, maybe duplicate or modify this class or this function to do it as something else, something new. And then I see what it did, and then I bring it in, and then I test it, and then everything looks good. Now I can commit the work. one of the things I'll say here is I never just say, it generated some code. There you go, out in production. What was it? What did it build for me? I don't know. I see that as when people say vibe coding, that's what that is I don't really know about software engineering. I just described the product I want. It ran and I used it and it worked the way I thought it should work. That to me is potentially problematic at this point in time. I think they're going to get better at that as the more real software engineering does things and says they're learning from our use of their product, to where, you know, these concerns about, well, it's not secure code, it put your password out in some file you can see in the website or something. That's just like the, you know, first rev, like the Model T or whatever. But the Tesla electric cars or whatever, or the Ferraris or whatever, they're coming. It's just a matter of refining. And in a way, people like myself and others using it from a software engineering perspective are helping to teach it how to do it to make the right choices and stuff like that. So that's where we'll get into that, but I would say that leads part of what I'm trying to say in this slide, is that your description of the problems need to be clear and in focus. When you have fuzzy descriptions of like what it is you want to build, a lot of times what you wind up getting out of the product isn't really what you had in mind. And so we'll see some techniques of how to use it, but there's two approaches that we're going to look at here: Claude Code and conversational AI. And I try to have it be that when I'm using conversational AI, I'll say, let's talk about this code. Don't generate any new code yet. Let's just talk about it, how we're going to approach it. And then finally, after and then we're going to see some examples of that, I'll say, yeah, go ahead and generate that code for me. So that's where when I kind of talk about having that conversation, like 80% of your time is talking about what it's about to do, is how will it, what classes are you going to use? How is the structure of the code going to look? One thing I find very fascinating is you can draw out, like, has anyone here ever used UML in their life? Like, class relationship diagrams are great because you can sit there on a piece of paper if you want and draw out a quick class relationship diagram, take a picture of it with your phone, give it to Claude Code, and then it understands, here's the classes that we're going to build. And that's a great way to communicate, is to diagram your solution. And sometimes I'll take a lab notebook and go out and sit in the patio and write notes down of what it is that I want to build, then take a photo of it with my phone, give it to the AI, and have it use that to get the conversation rolling. So these kind of decisions you see on here is like, you want to, if you're an engineer, you want to try to make sure in that conversational aspect of it, you know, what is it going to do with it? What libraries are you going to use? Are you using React or Angular, or are you just going to use plain JavaScript for front end? Or if you're in the back end, are you going to use an ORM for your database? Or are you going to just use plain SQL in your application? One thing I've noticed is AI changes the game around whether or not you want to bring in 1 million libraries. Because if you've ever really done a lot of software engineering, you've probably been caught up in this, oh, that library I'm using that saved me 10 minutes of coding, they keep coming up with a new version that breaks my old one, then they say it's not secure, so I have to stop the presses, spend time upgrading to the latest version of their library, and then I'm back on it. When you could have had AI just write the code that library was doing for you, so that you're not actually using the library. Now, you can't do that for everything, but you know, especially JavaScript with Node and stuff, you might have, you know, 1,000 dependencies, and some you depend on a library, which depends on a library, which depends on a library, and then that one goes out of business, and now they've rewritten everything. And you've got to spend a week upgrading your code just to use the latest version of Node. Because you switch up from like Node 17 to 20 or something like that, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. And so in order to just upgrade what version of Node you're using, you wind up having to manage all that. So also, how are you going to use security? So having that conversation when you're talking about all those things before you actually have it is a great way to get started. So the first thing I'll talk about is using Claude Code. And so That's an app from Anthropic, as one of these AI companies as opposed to ChatGPT. For me, like I have membership for like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, and Grok, plus I use DeepSeek. So I use them all the time. And as far as I'm concerned, Claude is the best models out there for software development, followed by Gemini is right behind it. That doesn't mean like the next version of ChatGPT won't come and replace those. That's why I'm constantly watching them. But I've been thoroughly impressed, especially with the Opus 4.5. It's a great model, and the pricing has come way down. Like, it used to be $75 per million tokens of output. Now I think it's like 15. So they've really tried to be more competitive for that tool. And what's nice about it, it's a CLI, a command line interface. So it runs in the terminal. So if you're not used to terminal, like if you're more of a Windows GUI type developer, having to drop down into the terminal might be a little bit unusual, but it's a good way for it to be able to access your code directly, to be able to run tools from the command line, like searching for files, even building your product, and then looking at the output. And so that's a plus and a minus. It does ask you, can I run this tool? And you can say yes per turn, or you can say yes for the session and it'll continue to do it on its own. I get a little worried about it doing some of that where it might change code. I've had it allow it to change all this code, and sometimes I'll say I want to just talk about something, and the next thing you know, it's changed code in a way that I wasn't liking because we didn't talk about it first, and it's not the approach I would have taken. So that's where I prefer sometimes conversational AI, where you're copying code out of your system into it. But we're going to look at some examples here where Claude Code can really help. And this is probably the main thing that I like it for right now. It's not the only thing, but one of the main things I like is to build websites. So it's great at being able to build HTML, CSS. And if you've ever heard of Jekyll, Jekyll is a static site generator that you build these templates of how the theme should look and code blocks and stuff, and you can build a page of content, have data files, and then say generate the site, and it generates a set of static files that'll then go off and sit on some directory. So if you ever use GitHub, there's GitHub Pages. That uses Jekyll. So you can actually take this code, commit it to your GitHub account, set up GitHub Pages for free, and then it'll host your website. You can even put a custom domain onto that and have like yourdomain.com go to your GitHub Pages site, and every time you commit to the main branch, it'll build the site for you on their servers, and then your site gets updated. And GitLab does the same thing. So Jekyll's actually a pretty reasonable way to go. Like if you compare it to other products, say like WordPress or whatnot, WordPress needs a database to run just for you to see the home page and stuff like that. And you might say, well, you can do dynamic things like change what's on the home page. Well, JavaScript's really good at that too. And so when you think about a static website, like what I do with it is I'll have a foundation of static content, and then the JavaScript loads into it and starts modifying the content of the page. So let's take a look at how some of that might work here. I just mentioned that. So it's a demo now. Let's do a little demo. So this is an example of one of those sites. Here's another one. So this is the, if I drop back down into the main site here, this is a Jekyll site with content that's managed by AI, and so all these pages here are just static pages that doesn't require any JavaScript. But if I go into the app, Now I am inside of various content that's driven by.
Good morning, Matthew. It's always nice to chat with you again, Siggy. I noticed you have a quiet day today, but tomorrow's mass service at St.
So I'll just mute that for now. So all this is kind of the dynamic JavaScript sitting on top of the website. So if we look at this site here, all this content was built with Claude Code. And it uses a common theme structure so that I can swap out. And if I want to add another set of color palettes to this, I can just go into Claude Code and say, here's some colors, like use a color set of colors from, there's different sites that'll say, here's a set of common colors that you could use. Bring it in there, add a new named color palette in here, and then once I like one, this is only shown in developer mode, this little slide out here. Now, let's just take a look at how this might work. So here it says, if I click on how it works, there's no page yet, right? So I'm going to put this mic down. I'm just going to try to, let's see if I can do it while holding it here. Here's one. I'll use this. I'll try to make this a little bigger. So I'm in Claude Code right now. I'm in this portfolio directory. So what I've done is I have a base directory called portfolio, and I have a bunch of sites underneath it. And from this one directory below it, I can say, let's work on this site or that site. So I'm going to put this mic down here for a minute. And just say, I want to add a new page to the Quest website for how it works. There is menu option for it, but no page. Generate the new page and hook up to menu. Make up the content for it, and I'll edit later. So now it's running. It comes up with some interesting words. Can you guys see that okay? Yeah. All right. So it's looking at the site. It says it looks at to understand the patterns. It sees looking at these pages. It understands the pattern. It's setting up a how it works page. You can see how long it's taking, how many tokens. So it's creating that link for me.
I have a question.
Putting in the data.
Matthew, we have a question while it's going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you start with any kind of base code?
Yeah, so I was going to show that before. I have a template site that it has instructions already inside of it that says when I want to create a new site, copy that over and ask a set of questions. I'll run through that here in a minute. And then, so here it's done. It's created that page with a hero and steps and sections and stuff like that, explaining how it works. And it didn't build, it did build too. All right, so it says build completed. So I should just be able to hit refresh. And so there it is. And it's got these content sections in here. It hasn't actually put full everything I want in there yet, but I could come in if I want to just have a discussion and say, these cards should really be saying this, or using different icons. What's cool about those SVG icons that it's using up there is that I have about 100 that it's generated for me already in the theme. So Jekyll has this support for like a theme folder that has standard layouts and blocks, like this block with 4 cards on it that hover and stuff like that, or this little section here where it's waiting for me to drop in a photo on the side or an image of some kind. All of this is blocks that it puts in the theme. So I can go in and adjust those blocks in another conversation, and I can have it add new blocks, but I've got like quite a few blocks already for these different sites that use it. And so, but it generated those SVG icons for me. Yes, go ahead.
Do we know yet how these AI generated sites respond in terms of SEO compared to like WordPress?
Yeah, I've got instructions in here that it's got elements like there's header components and stuff. So there's two levels of SEO, right? There's special meta tags that you can put in there that describe the content, and that's in here. But there's also the keywords that it's using. So if I didn't like these articles in the way that they're written, I could have a conversation about that and ask it to update that content. And if I wanted it to be specifically SEO focused, there's ways for you to tell Claude Code to remember that I want to be highly SEO focused and use these techniques and describe any kind of techniques you want. And then as it generates new content for all the sites underneath it, it can use those directions to keep it going. So it's up to you how far you want to go with that. Like if I come in here and just say Kusog AI, so you can see that like it's set that up with this, getting this kind of structure where you see the main link and these other links below it and all the other things that go in here is coming from that, that site being good with the SEO. There's quite a few. Now it mixes in like things around LinkedIn and stuff like that. But if I go to Kusog AI, this is one of those portfolio sites. So if I go to projects, these are the same cards that I'm using in that quick little game site. And that like the footer menu, I can just ask it to add another entry into this services, or with services in particular, it would create a new service as a data element, create a new page for it, and things like that. Or if I go to projects, like you look at this project here, the Advocate project, all these links, this little sidebar, and being able to navigate around, all of this was AI generated. The images, the content. Now, it didn't just like these examples I'm giving here where I'm just asking it to quickly pull something out. I mean, this actually took me days to get this content exactly how I wanted it to work.
So on the WordPress thing too, just in general, I do a ton in WordPress. WordPress is going to be awesome in a lot of ways. If you build something like this, it's going to be faster. Lately, the SEO matters more about the speed of the page load than it used to. But two questions for you, Matt. One, so when you're using the context window to have like the discussion session with it, sometimes I'll have a whiteboard up and I'll be like, well, should I use an image that will eat up more of the context window, or should I describe the image? Do you have any thoughts on sort of, as you're feeding it that, to manage context?
So I generate the images outside of those conversations. Like I'll ask it to put a block like it created in this other one here. It created an image ready for me to, it's got a name to it and everything. I'll then go to another tool or another conversation. I don't use that same Claude Code to generate images. I'm not even sure if it'll do that for me.
Well, it's more of like if I give it an image to look at and say, here's the wireframe of the project versus I'm going to explain the wireframe. Sometimes I just think because it's an image file, it'll be bigger. On the Jekyll sheet, like would this be a good example of like, let's say you were making a messaging project. And so there was a client-side messaging, and it was going through like the relay as the main server. Would you make like a Jekyll sheet to test that locally, and then you could run with the server? Is that a good example of what that framework works like?
Yeah, I mean, so the Jekyll is just going to be the static content that can load your JavaScript for the front-end piece of it. The same thing would be true of the WordPress site. You'd have a combination of JavaScript and then maybe PHP if you're going to do it all as like a WordPress plugin. And I've done a lot of work. I have actually a few WordPress sites. The thing I have now with why I don't use WordPress so much anymore is if I can use AI to have conversations to edit content, like I just added that whole new page without actually building anything, and then I can modify that page in conversation and then just deploy it with it can deploy it as easily as it built it. And my server resources are definitely much cheaper and faster overall. Like not needing a database, and not even with the like super cache, and I forget if that was the name of it, but you know, they have caching, so it's not actually running PHP through and through to generate a page in WordPress. It's just more reliable. Like these sites go sit on an S3 bucket in AWS. It's fronted by CloudFront and WAF. And it's pretty much almost impossible for that site to go down. I mean, AWS has to have a systemic failure for my site to go offline. And so for me, I've had things like my SQL database getting corrupted and then it's all blown up. Or I put in a plugin for something like the Yosh, like SEO and some of these other plugins that are really popular, adding tables into the database that then become an issue, and my site's not running until I resolve my database concerns. And so with the way that I built like this other site here, where you know you have full functionality, like I can come in and go ahead and write. Let me go to this books, for example. I can write books. I can use this full interface to develop. Like here's a multi-chapter book that I've been working on. All this functionality comes from JavaScript talking to a back end. Now, if my back end API servers, which use a database too, have a problem and it's not working, you'll still be able to load the home page. You'll still be able to go through all the main website and load the JavaScript up, because that's a static resource coming out of the S3 bucket as well. It's just that you'll get the JavaScript will say, I can't connect to the back end right now, try again later. Versus like normally when my main WordPress site, like my String Club website is WordPress, like this is actually a WordPress site. So that's a WordPress site, and this is mostly just static content, but if that WordPress site's down, you don't get to see this homepage. And if I go into this songs, and say pick one of these, now I'm getting into the JavaScript. So I have a version of this based in Jekyll too, which I'm not quite ready to put into production yet, but it has basically it looks and works exactly the same, except it's got AI integrated into it as well. So it can actually help clean up, like the way this site works, you upload an MP3 file, you upload a MIDI file, and it generates the tracks and the sheet music for you and stuff like that. So I wrote all the JavaScript to generate the sheet music from a MIDI file, which is a lot more work than it sounds. But at any rate, AI is changing the game. You know, to be able to have a conversation to generate a page like this is huge, and to be able to have it generate icons. So instead of having to use Font Awesome and pay $100 a year to get their pro icons, you just say, oh, I don't like that book icon. Can you turn it into two hands in a praying thing or something? And oh, it generates a new SVG, sticks it in there, and you're good to go. And now it had just added that new icon it created into my theme so that all the other websites can use it without any kind of an issue. So here's another one. This is another site. This is the production version of it that was built by that same Jekyll Claude Code environment. So that's the closest thing to vibe coding, is that these sites, I never touched the HTML or CSS. I do a quick review of it, especially the CSS, because I'm pretty interested to make sure that's all good, but otherwise it's all AI. Yeah, go ahead.
How many tokens did it take to generate that, and at what cost?
I'm just paying the $100 a month, and I've yet to hit with the Opus 4.5 being now just $15 per million. They give you so many extra tokens. Like the API costs are $15 per million output tokens. But when you set up Claude Code, you have a choice between hook up to your API or hook and use your token or your access token, or hook into your Claude conversation. When you hook into Claude conversation, it's like they've given you 5x the number of tokens. So I'm coding all day, like 8 hours, 10 hours a day with Claude, and I pay $100 a month, and I probably still have more room for it.
So, yeah, let me speak to that for a minute. Anthropic actually subsidized the Claude Code CLI. So when you pay like $100 a month, there's also a $200 a month plan. You get, like you said, many, many, many more tokens than you would through the API. So it's a really cost-effective approach. You can use it for very large systems. To give you an example, we do more larger sort of SMB and enterprise system development. We recently took an e-commerce site that didn't have a warehouse module. And we built a warehouse module, a complete warehouse module that plugged in using their plug-in system in 2 days. Fully tested with all the automated integration tests you'd want. 2 days. That would have taken at least a month, maybe 2, by hand coding. And it worked brilliantly. So, and that was, to your question about tokens, that was within the plan, didn't even push it.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't, it's not an issue for one account, the $100 a month account, and there's a $200 a month account. I don't even know why I haven't had it tell me, you're out, sorry, come back at the end of the next month billing cycle or something.
Well, it actually doesn't even work like that. What happens, because I have hit the limit, what it does is it puts you offline for about an hour.
Yeah, I've hit that limit when it was the $75 per million tokens, like the 4.1 version of Opus. But now that 4.5 is out and the cost is so much lower, I have not seen that.
I haven't hit it either recently.
I haven't seen that at all. So that's the power of it. Now, I just wanted to give the example of the website because Claude Code is really awesome at just pounding out websites, like good-looking websites, readable content, and so forth. So, but we're going to look at another example here. Go ahead.
Unrelated, this mic is really light. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So for Claude Code, can you have different, like multiple users that could log in with their own sort of, log in and manage their different projects? That's question one, and then I have another quick
So it's not like Claude Code is keeping your code in some back-end server. So the way you would achieve that, there is an enterprise version that I think gives you like the ability to say, I have one bill for 10 users. Right. But in reality, what happens is I commit my work into, say, GitLab or GitHub. You work with me. You have access to my code repo. You pull it down. You use your login to use your Claude Code, and then we share the same files that are a part of the repo that tell Claude how to do its job and what kind of rules and regulations it's going to have. And it's everything like I think you're asking about, where we're working on the same project, but we don't need to be a part of the same Claude Code environment because you have your account, you pay your $100, I have my account, I pay my $100, and we work off of a common GitLab repo or GitHub repo, and you pull it down to your environment, and we just commit our work like you would a normal software team.
Got it. And then my last question is for, like, you showed the space holder for like pictures. Does that hold true for other media like video, sound? I could say like, hey, I want to hold a space to put in a YouTube video or a whatever, MP3, something.
I want to show, so when I use, this is another site I'm working on, and so for a minute, I don't want to bring religion into this too much, but what I do want to show is how I've got, download this PDF, and there's the PDF. All of that PDF was built by Claude Code. and it set up the link, and it has so the whole thing was just I want a PDF with this content in it. It generated the PDF, it put that into the project, it set up the link for me, and it had it ready to go so that I could just click that link and download the PDF. Now, another example, like if I go to, here it is. If I go to blogs, so like I'm going to take this one, every time I do one of these, I wait till they upload the YouTube video. So here's the last one I did. I take the transcript of the YouTube video, put it in the AI conversation, say, write me a blog entry that goes with it. So this is an AI generated blog entry that maps up to the transcript of what I actually spoke about. So once this video for today is put up onto YouTube, I'll download the transcript, create a new blog entry, and tell it, I just tell it, here's the link, and it will set that up for me. So because it's a YouTube link, it just knows, okay, yeah, I'll put there's the video, here's the link for it so that I can click play and it'll start playing the video in line. So it creates the blog entry, it updates the list of articles that are available. The tag cloud is set up for that. Oh, I hate this thing, hold on, I can't believe it's doing that to me now. SharePoint, I'm not a big fan of SharePoint. I'm just going to kill that because I don't want to deal with the key thing right now. All right. So, yeah, I mean, it takes like less than 5 minutes. Once that video's up there, I just go into Claude Code and say, I want a new blog entry. Here's the YouTube transcript. Here's the link to the YouTube. It chugs along, adds a new page, updates all the tags and everything, and then I can publish it and boom, it's online. Done. As much as easy as doing WordPress to me, easier because I didn't have to actually write the blog. I mean, I might have a conversation about, like I have a Word document for this presentation that I did that's another 30 pages of content after having a conversation with AI about it. I'll also feed that in with the transcript so it has a much deeper understanding of what I was trying to talk about doing AI code generation. Oh, and here we are running out of time, and I really wanted to focus on one more technique because this is pretty good. I do actually want to show this one more example here. So when I come into, not that, where did I put you? Here, no, shoot. Here it is. So one of the things I had AI do is I can say, I want to listen to this content, so I can say listen.
Listen to what we're not saying. The phrase formed unbidden in William's mind as he turned from the window, a variation on the child's plea that had haunted him.
And so this whole interface where it's trying to convert text and playing it and streaming down, and it's now converting the next chunk and how long it's going to take to read that.
Lightness concealed.
I can skip to this next chunk or just stop it all.
Whoever was hurting
This was all generated by AI, all that JavaScript, right? So that's browser front-end JavaScript using WebSockets to a C# server that puts a job queue on a job message on a Rabbit MQ queue that another C# worker is listening to, which then runs Python as a child process. So if you've ever done C# or Java or whatever, you might be aware of like, I can have a C# project start a child process that does something that I can control with standard in, out, and error. So whenever I want to do AI work, like say convert text to speech locally using local models on my own, GPUs, not some SaaS vendor. So that audio was me running my own. So the Python, the C# worker, the C# service, the WebSocket streaming down to the browser, and the JavaScript to make all that work, plus this interface here, which has no audio right now, was all written by AI. So I just have conversations about it. And so I just want to kind of go off to this here. Here, sometimes when I'm doing that level of coding, I don't like using Claude Code for that. I do use Claude Code for serious software development, not just web pages, but because it's looking at files, you can run out of, you only have like 200,000 tokens before it starts wanting to crunch it down and you lose context and stuff. So I prefer a really tight conversation. So if you notice here, I'm saying, let's have a technical conversation about the following C# code. Don't write new code unless I specifically ask for it. And then I paste in a single method of a class, not the whole file. I just want to talk about a method. With Claude Code, it's nice, it can go look at the file and get it for me and start looking at that same method, but it loaded the whole file most of the time. Sometimes it can do like searches, like using sed or other things to find methods in some file somewhere, but it's pretty much loading the whole file into the conversation. And that's eating up tokens. And so then it's telling me what it thinks about that function. And then I say, here's the pipeline definition. So I'm using something like an ETL pipeline. So when those jobs come up, it doesn't just execute it in the method of like a controller, like a web API. It says, oh, I'm going to start a pipeline, which is a bunch of little chunks of code that have been configured. I'll say, here's a pipeline for registering a new company. So a company signs up, they want a new website, like I've just been showing. Like if you go to Kusog AI Agent, you can sign up as a company. You can get a white labeled version of the site, which is one of these sites I've just been showing you. And then it'll connect into all those AI functionalities for you. And then you can have conversations with the system to modify your own website, similar to what I've just been showing you. And so here we are just having a conversation about what we're trying to do. Here's another process. Here's now the pipeline processor that's doing work within it. So we're talking about, it's trying to get an understanding of little snippets of things that I want. And then ultimately, I start to talk about now the database, doing tables and stored procedure calls, things like that. So, and then I start talking about security and how we're going to deal with security and stuff like that. And then I start talking about managing the code, what kind of changes that, let's consider some other work currently being done manually when adding a new tenant to the system. A tenant means adding a new company and website too. Here's a short guide about it. And I pasted in a description of what it means to generate a new tenant so that we can write code that does it all automatically. And now we're looking at a stored procedure or a function in Postgres. So we're going from C# and YAML files to Postgres SQL, and we're having a conversation about how all these things work together. And now I like what it's doing. It's starting to show me things that we might change, how it's going to work. And I'm getting to this, one of the main things of why I like conversations. I control exactly what code goes into that conversation, line by line. Sure, I'm copying, pasting it into the conversation. Claude Code's nice because it can just pull from your files, but you have less control over what it's doing. And so ultimately, one of the techniques I want to show here is coming up. We're almost there. Here it is. If you notice, I'm floating over this. It's showing 4 of 4. So what happened is, I started off with this simple, I don't know why, I got to be careful. Sometimes it swaps out a longer conversation. I'm going back and re-editing the branch of the code. Let me go back to my slide because I put in a thing for that. We're going to run out of time. Goodness. So I started off with, you are correct for book stories and how tables are created, and we will deal with that later. And I didn't like what it was trying to say about, it was trying to create a new query. I thought, no, and it starts to tell me, do I have any other things? What do I think about this? Instead of me typing in another reply and correcting it in an ongoing conversation, I don't do that. This is one of the most important things I could probably say out of everything out of this to me is this piece right here, is that I go back up and I edit it to say, oh no, wait, here's for the app ID, we wouldn't be passing them in, so it would be easier than using a new params, it would only be added as a field to the query, blah, 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 blah. And then again, it gives its reply. A little bit more of a different SQL is being created. It starts asking, can you clarify what you mean by app ID for not being passed in? I realize I didn't write the query well enough, so I come back, my prompt, I come back up and I give an example, and it comes back again. How does execute get one type handle mismatches between fields defined in the property on the template parameter? You know, if you don't know C#, what's important is I could have come in and typed in another prompt here. The reason not to do that is you're going to wind up confusing the AI, because you first said, no, do A. And said, oh, what do you mean A? Oh, wait, I meant B. Oh, okay, yeah, what about B? No, I really meant C. Oh, okay. Now you get this thing called context rot. Okay, what context rot is later it starts to say, oh, wait, you really meant A again. No, I already told you it was A. No, it was really D. In the end, it was D was the right answer. Forget A, forget B. But it won't, because it's a part of the conversation. And when the conversation gets long and long, look it up. There's something called context rot. It starts to forget that you meant D was the right answer and that A doesn't apply. And it starts applying A again. All right, so why keep A in the conversation? There's a question up here on the top.
I just want to point out one thing real quick for the people who are just getting into this, is if you pay a $20 a month most basic Claude subscription, you're going to get 44,000 tokens per 5-hour period. So if you really want to get into it, it's like not, you don't have to pay $100 just to like play with it. And that's going to be enough to like get something done.
Yeah, that's only the web interface. It does not include Claude Code. Claude Code is the CLI. Is that now? That's new. Okay, great. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Hook your Claude Code to it and play with it for $20 a month. It gives you, you know, it's enough to play with. It'll occasionally be like you're going to have to wait an hour, but you can get real stuff done in that, just if you want to play with it without like forking out $100.
Now, Claude Code doesn't let you edit your conversation like what I'm showing here, though. And so you can still run into that same kind of issue where you're trying to clarify. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about that. It's interesting because it's like creates like a tree. I don't even think this is working. Just test.
It works.
Okay. It's kind of like a tree, right? So it's like or a decision tree. Like you're like, actually no, I meant this. So you could start a new pathway. Is that something that's specific to Claude?
No,
I actually have never seen that.
OpenAI, Gemini is not quite as good at that. They're getting better. At least the last time I checked, Gemini would only let you edit the last response, whereas Claude and ChatGPT and X, you could go back up to the very first thing you typed in and edit that and basically start a whole new conversation. So by coming back up here and editing, though, now I'm on 4, and you notice it was a much longer conversation. This was, now I like where it's going. And so for this conversational branch, it's almost like you just went perfect. You said, oh no, just do D. It forgets all about A, B, and C. It's like it never existed. And so now for this path, like you're talking about the branch in a tree, this is the perfect path through, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And there's no chance that it's going to say, oh, wait, you meant A, right? No, because A is no longer a part of the conversation. That was branch 1 of 4. You know, so Here we're on 4 of 4. When you're in this branch, 4 of 4, anything you did on branch 1, 2, or 3 from that particular prompt is just not a part of this conversation anymore. So it's like it doesn't exist. And so you can keep doing that. Like it would become an entire tree. Like later I could have said, oh no, wait, I don't like the way you responded to this one. Let me edit that and go make another change and start another branch from that. Because in the end, you want to have the least amount of tokens used to get to the solution that you want. And so if you wind up correcting yourself, like you don't like the AI's response, don't correct it with another prompt. Go back up and clarify until you get the kind of response you think you should be getting so that you can move forward from that. And all those like weird responses are just gone. That's so huge. Like I can't tell you the benefits I've gotten from this are just huge. If you wind up correcting yourself in the conversation, all those wrong answers and stuff will catch you and bite you in the butt later. So you're just going to be better off going back up and editing your prompt until you get the response you think, yeah, you got it. Wow, you really did it. You nailed it. Let's keep going. That's what you want to get out of it. So in the end, what you can get, oh, I've got a perfect code in here. I love what you did. Here's some documentation that wrote for me. You got all that documentation right. And so on. Oh, and here we are already 12, so I'm running out of time. So that's the main gist of it, is you've got Claude Code, which is really good for going into your files, doing quick things. And for like websites, like a WordPress replacement with Jekyll, boom, it's awesome. And for even coding, like some of those code examples I could show, it's good for certain kinds of coding. But when I'm crossing like C#, Python, JavaScript, and then even Postgres database queries that cross different projects and stuff like that, I have precious tokens that I don't want to waste. It's not about money, it's about context rot coming. Because the whole million token thing is a lie. I mean, sure, you can have a conversation for 1 million tokens, but you could say at the beginning of your conversation, here's a list of things you shouldn't do, here's a list of things you should do, and by the time you're at like 200,000 tokens, it's lost all track and it's doing the things it's not supposed to do, and maybe it's not doing the things it's supposed to do because it's just lost track of it because of context rot. So long before you hit the max tokens per conversation, you're going to get mold growing up in the conversation, kind of ruining things. So if you can go back and edit and get it done in the least amount of tokens possible, that's why sometimes like another technique I'll use is go start another conversation. Like if I want to do something, go to a different conversation. Then, like sometimes you need the context of that conversation you're in. So it's this balance between having multiple conversations going or doing it in the conversation where it already has the context of everything you're talking about. So, that's the technique, the approach that I started off this conversation with. How you approach using AI, like that branching thing is huge. It saves a lot of heartache. Where you say, I told you not to do that A, and it's back on A again. Even though we're supposed to be always doing D. And it did do D for a while, but then the context rot kicked in, it's doing A. So you get rid of A. Just don't leave A in the conversation by going up and editing. And you'll get a lot more bang for the buck. I hope they add that to Claude Code because you can't do that. You can't go back up to Claude Code and say, oh no, wait, this is what I really want you to do. Do it. Forget all that other stuff we just talked about and do it that way. And there's times where I wish it would because it's nice it can look at all those files.
So,
yeah.
Wait, time.
Yeah, time.
Okay. With that said, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great. All right, so we're breaking for lunch. And if anybody has an idea for a presentation, would like to be standing here, waving their arms, let me know. We'll talk. Thank you very much, folks. We'll see ya.